Okay, so 6:30, I'm gonna call this meeting to order. We get a motion to approve the agenda.
Make a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll second that.
All those in favor, any changes?
I don't see any. We need that.
Jim, got your hand up or?
Oh, I approve the agenda.
Okay,
Oh.
all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Open up the floor to public comments and, just be mindful that we have, 3 minute, 3 minute time limit on comments. So we give everybody a chance. So is anyone here for public comments?
Wait, can I ask everyone to please state their name for the record if they have something to say? Thank you. Yeah.
Hi, Bill Murphy. And, no, I just, needed to tune in with this, with the proposed, floodplain ordinance. And, it's pretty, extensive, but, is the purpose is to primarily do what? I know it states here, but,
The purpose is that the state is coming out with a floodplain regulation in the next, I guess it's already out, but if we have a local one, we have local control, we can have, we can do things with it, but otherwise we have to do what they say. So the main purpose is to beat the deadline the state has given us.
okay,
But the changes are, we're changing it from only looking at the 100-year floodplain to include the 500-year floodplain as another zone that affects structures and storage of materials and items. And there's a whole list in the regulation, so it tells you what's covered and what.
yeah.
included.
You want to fire?
Yeah, I'm Anita Duffy, and I wanted to know about people that live in the 500-year floodplain. I've read through half of your document, and there's a lot of strict regulations, and some of them I'd like to know how they apply to people that already live there. And if something happened, I mean, there's like so many rules and needs for permits for people that live in that area. But if you're there already and you have your electrical in your basement, and so how does that affect us?
Well, the first thing, the need for a permit doesn't necessarily mean something is gonna get rejected. It's the permit is there for our information. And we've actually, at the last meeting, we were talking about waiving the permit fee for some cases, but I think, Gio, do you wanna answer the question or?
Yeah, it's all over the place in terms of if you need a permit or not, but say you have, if you're just gonna replace a panel in your basement. Yeah, it's a sort of an administrative thing that you would come in and say, this is what we're doing, it's gonna cost us over $500. The floodplain and zoning administrator would say, okay, great. Go ahead. If you wanna add on to your house, substantially add on, you would need to get a permit for that. And then there'll be a board of adjustment. So there'll be a new group here in town who would look at your project and then say, okay, great, we approve this, but what we want is we want you to have your bottom floor of your new addition above the base flood elevation. So if the flood waters do come up, chances are this won't get flooded.
If you wanted to, like on my property there, if I said, oh, I want to put a garage there, I mean, does it have to be under 500 square feet, you know? So these are like rules, and then you need a permit. If I have to take my mini decks down and replace them, does that mean
Just an administrative permit, just that you'd be
you
able
have
to
to say,
replace what you
because
already
it's
have.
where?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Next.
And maybe this is, just in the interest of time, maybe it's better if we connected offline unless you had.
Yeah, and one other thing, and then I'll stop. If I want to sell my house and I don't have, you know, everything's in the basement and would I not be able to sell it as it is because it doesn't meet proper
No.
standard?
No,
Okay, I wondered about that.
no issue selling. The thing that's different now in the state of Vermont, and this has nothing to do with this ordinance, is the state of Vermont was one of the last states, and I think there's a few other holdout states, and they added it last year. Now, if you go to sell your house, you have to report if you're in a flood hazard area or not.
Mhm.
So that doesn't change.
No, that's-
You've always been there.
Yeah, yeah.
But you will have to disclose that now.
Mhm.
So wasn't her question about if you add if she wants to add a garage? And that's a new structure, so there wouldn't.
500, you're allowed to do an accessory dwelling of 500 square feet.
Okay, okay. All right,
It just seems,
go ahead.
it's like retroactive zoning, you know, zoning after the fact, after we're there.
Well, it's not aimed at you, it's aimed at protecting the people downstream and trying to keep control over what, you know, what's happening in the floodplain.
Yeah, it's not aimed at getting you out, it's aimed at regulating and limiting development in the floodplain going forward.
I understand the floodplain and that it probably should be kept clear, but I'm there and you know, this doesn't seem to, I know it's supposed to be in the best interest of everybody, but I mean, if we start trying to save the town money or not just the town money, but you know, people money with all these disasters, then I mean, you could point to Gee Hill and say, maybe we ought to keep people off of hills. You know, it doesn't seem to help me.
One of the things that we heard was people saying, how can you allow this to happen? You know, people are building in the floodplain. How can you allow that to happen? Well, without rules to prevent that, there's nothing we can do. So the reason is, you know, people are buying land that you shouldn't be building them. And they're going ahead and doing this stuff, which
Right.
is the reason why we need to have rules.
The continue building, I can see somebody who's been there for 50 years or.
But isn't that the purpose of flood insurance?
I'm sorry.
If Brad Arnold, if they build in a zone that shouldn't be built in, the whole point is having flood insurance. And then if they shouldn't be building there, flood insurance denies them.
We're not doing it. The only thing we're doing with insurance is getting a better rate by having these rules.
But isn't that the property owner's responsibility? If he's building in a flood zone, that's clearly a flood zone.
But it also damages other people's property to have stuff float down the river. I mean, look at what happened in Irene. We had propane tanks going down the river, we had campers going down the river. And those things, the new rules say the propane tanks need to be tied down, they need to be secured.
Yeah.
The campers need to be out of there by, you know, between November and May. And Irene actually happened in August, so that wouldn't have helped with the campers, but you know, it's stuff floating down through the river that takes out somebody else's house. You know, it's dangerous to have stuff piling up like that.
Stuart, you want me to talk to insurance real quick?
Yeah.
Since he asked that question.
Go ahead.
So with insurance, it's all privately done. The reason that the insurance rates, I know they're still high, but the reason that flood hazard insurance is as cheap as it is, even though it's not cheap,
No,
is because the federal government has subsidized it. And the reason houses here in town qualify for that subsidized rate is because we have these flood hazard ordinances. So if the insurance companies will probably insure you no matter what, no matter where your house is located, they just charge the bejesus out of you. So the lower you are, closer to the river, more below the base flood elevation, the higher you pay. But it would be astronomically high, like, people just really couldn't even think about buying it if we didn't have.
So therefore would indicate not to build there. They can't afford the flood insurance there, then don't build there.
That
I have a question. I have a
Okay.
question.
Yes.
This is Rhonda Tuthill and Philip Tuthill, and I have two questions actually. But first, I have a comment that I don't feel Gio should be speaking about insurance and the probability of what might happen, what they might charge and all, because he's not the insurance. He doesn't represent the insurance. He doesn't work for them. So I don't feel that his comments should have any bearing. My first question is that because the select board had just received the amended draft just before the last meeting at the beginning, was the 7th, and didn't have time to really read it or distribute it to anybody. The general public is all I'm concerned about. So the general public didn't get the amended draft, didn't have time to read it, absorb it, or think of appropriate questions. Why, when we had questions about it, why was it rushed through? And why didn't you table it for another time when there were more questions about it? I don't understand the push you voted on and approved a draft to go before the public that has mistakes and contradictions in there. And tonight you're talking, your verbiage, you're contradicting it yourself. You're calling it a bylaw. You voted that it's a bylaw. You're still calling it an ordinance. You have the word ordinance in your bylaw. It's an incomplete draft that should not go before the public without being correct. So why did that happen? Why did you vote?
The ordinance and the bylaw were clarifications. At first, we were calling it a ordinance because we thought that was the right thing to call it. We later received information that said that it should be called a bylaw, so that's why that changes. The content didn't change.
Well, no, the content is changed. There's numerous verbiage in there that's bylaws. And you voted on it and you agreed it's all a bylaw. Okay, so it's a bylaw because anything that pertains to zoning is called a bylaw. So we're going to call this a zoning ordinance, as far as I'm concerned. But within that draft, you also have verbiage of ordinance. And tonight at the meeting, you're still talking about your ordinance. But that's just one point. My question is, you didn't have time to read through it and correct your mistakes. You had public there that still had questions. You hurried it through, and then you voted and approved it. What is the rush? Why does it have to go through now?
The timing on this thing has been in the works for quite a while. And frankly,
1 year.
In the form that it's in, almost the same form that it's in, with a few small changes. This went
from what?
Excuse me, let me finish. I'm trying to answer your question. It went to the public in November because of procedural and technical difficulties and failings on the planning commission's part. that vote wasn't valid. But this is not something that's been rushed through in the last few weeks. This particular version with small changes from November is essentially the same document that's been out there that the public saw and the public voted on in November. The timing right now is we want this to get the fullest review and have the greatest participation in terms of voting of the residents of Royalton. That's why we want it to happen on meeting day.
But because you had a public forum set up for the draft, I was under the impression that when the amendments came back, that you would have set aside time like you did before. It was a half an hour, 6:30 to 7 of public forum. I thought that you talked of doing that again, but that didn't happen. And I realize I can't be there in person because I'm not in Vermont at the moment. But the connection the connection at the last meeting was horrid, absolutely horrid. And I was having difficulties. Joe Lavasser was having difficulties. It kicked us out. It froze. It was horrid. So this is not the ideal avenue, but because of that avenue, I didn't have a chance to get a say or to participate. And it did feel rushed when I went back and watched the YouTube video. It did feel rushed. You glossed over a lot of it because I don't think you really read it. There is verbiage in there that got changed that has very significant meaning. And I just feel that it's being pushed upon us, and there's not going to be time at town meeting because you're going to have a full agenda, a pre-town meeting, because you're going to have a full agenda. And I just think that the general public deserves the right to have a reasonable amount of time to have gotten that amended version and get it and read it and digest it and see how it's going to affect us. And we didn't get allowed that opportunity. So I guess your answer is that you just needed to get it through because you had a time frame deadline before pre-town meeting. Okay, so that's pretty much what I was thinking. My other question is that on it's on the grandfather clause, which you're not calling it a grandfather clause in there at all, but it's just like the verbiage in the grandfather clause has significant meaning with the different changes in there. When you put in a whole terminology about abandonment, we didn't discuss that before. The public didn't have a chance to weigh in on that terminology, and then the examples under that whole clause has changed the meanings of what can be parked no more than 180 days on your property, because it's now doesn't pertain, according to that clause, it doesn't pertain to just recreational vehicles, boat trailers, portable toilets, construction trailers, or travel trailers. It also now pertains to vehicles, because that's the wording that you have in there. So again, I feel that you're putting before the town a document that you really didn't mean to have some of this verbiage in there, and that you really should have corrected so that it's correct. I grew up, my parents always told me, do it once and do it right. This is not right, and you're going to be doing it more than once, I believe.
Well,
I hope.
if you have comments that, you're being pretty vague, I think, in your description here. I haven't heard any specific comments except for the terminology of vehicles. Why don't you send them in? One thing we don't hear from people.
I'd rather have a public comment so that everybody can hear and everybody can weigh in. And I don't feel that pre-town meeting is going to be a good enough time, because you have a full agenda on that day. You know, and I would rather have that you had set this up, and I realize it's probably too late, but you should have set this up so that it was just about the amended version you got back, but you already voted to approve it. So, anyways, I think I have my answers. You have no interest in fixing your mistakes or making this amendment, this document correct. Is that what I'm hearing?
What you're hearing. This is not something that we're trying to cover anything up. We're not glossing over mistakes. You haven't pointed out where the mistakes are, so how do we know? I mean, sure, we'll take another look at it, but it's not something that I'm getting, I don't feel what's the same way you do about this being a document full of mistakes.
Well, that's because you haven't gone through it to see your mistakes then. And again, I don't, we're on a 3-minute rule I heard tonight, so I don't want to, I don't want to take up the time to do it now. You should have set up
Send in your questions. We'll take a look at them.
Okay. So another one of my questions is that,
Yeah, we're gonna let somebody else talk for a minute here.
okay.
Greg has a hand first.
No, Greg.
It's Greg Stolowski, Stoloski. I own and live on 2 acres on the White River. I mostly just came just to say, I knew people were gonna speak about the flood ordinance today. I wanted to thank the select board and the planning commission for the willingness to work on something that I think the town does need. And 2, actually communicate what I thought was fairly well with the public. I've been following the creation of this ordinance now for, about a year. I've attended several meetings that were run by the planning commission at the Academy building. And I thought they did a great job explaining how it was going to affect me as a property owner. Well, how it's going to affect my ability to use my property and what I would be allowed to do as well. And I think for a lot of people, if you take the time to read through it, understand the document and ask questions of the select board of the planning commission, it becomes pretty clear that what's being created is for a lot of our mutual benefit. I mean, living on the White River, should somebody be storing chemicals, gasoline, or other pollutants close to the river during a flood, those materials are going to wind up on my property. And I would love to prevent damage to my soil, my grass, and other people that live in the river corridor as well. I recognize that part of my property I will not be able to build on, but as part of my property, I don't think it would be advisable to build on. I'm upstream of other people. I am upstream of bridges. And to see a structure get washed away that could do damage, I think would be detrimental. And somebody telling you that I don't. Yes, I think it's good the select board has decided to put it before people at town meeting. I think ultimately between now and then, we all have the time to read the document, understand how it affects us individually, as well as the town and the resources. Even if you don't live on the river, we all use it and benefit from it. And I think taking it to a public vote is the best way for people to ultimately decide what's best for the town through a majority. I'm good.
Thank you. And
Actually, some of my comments parallel what Greg just said. Sharon O'Connor. I was really gonna emphasize how clear and the presentations were at the Academy building, particularly the maps. And I've forgotten the guy's name who was there from the state, who described the development of the corridor.
Ned
Ned
Swanberg.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just really clear and really helpful, and I think having an expert like that stand up in front of the public and address individual comments and questions was really gratifying and really informative. So I wanted to thank you all for your attention on this and for spending so much time making our town safer for everybody.
I wanted to clarify Sandy Conrad, Anita Duffy's question about renovations in the home. I feel like at the last select board meeting, when you guys tried to change that from 500 to 5,000, it's 500. And when I gave you an example of me wanting to renovate my bathroom, I would have to get a permit to do that. And at that time, you could tell me that it's not okay for my furnace and everything to be in the basement, that it would be the recommendation to move that up during the renovation. Did I misunderstand that clarification?
I think
Yeah, I
that,
think, if you're renovating your bathroom and you cross the dollar threshold,
$500.
which we did agree, the reason we were trying to change that, because we did think that was
But
right,
it didn't get changed.
and I don't. Because it's a take it or leave it clause from
Right.
the DEC, that's just not something we can negotiate on. If we want it to be approved by the state and we want it to have the overall effect and the benefits that it brings, including a 5% boost in our recovery money from flood reparations, we had to take that as it were. That's one of the situations where Stuart was talking about. We realize that's a ridiculously low number.
Well, that's
And
the point
there
I was
may
trying to make.
and those are the kind of permits we want
That's
to.
the point
I know, I'm
trying
getting
make.
to it, I'm getting to it. But if you're renovating your bathroom, no, you're not gonna be made to move your panel and
That
your,
was my
and your
understanding at
mechanicals.
the last meeting.
Well, I'm
And
sorry,
I re-listened to the YouTube.
okay, I'm sorry if that was the message that came
So-
through,
so
because I
why-
think that's the wrong message.
Why do we have to tell you we're doing renovations then?
Because if we didn't include that particular provision as written, then we don't get the benefit of the 5% boost in recovery for flood damage money.
So it comes at the cost of us in the flood zone. And then my other point is, to yours is, I'm in the 500-year floodplain, and when I built my property there, and I was there during Irene. All of the 100-year floodplain things that were in there that we weren't managing ended up in my home, in my backyard, right? What my argument is Stockbridge doesn't have, the river flows downhill, right, to the Connecticut. There's no other towns upriver from us that have any of these rules and regulations. And what we have been trying to ask this board and planning commission to do is wait until the state finalizes their 2028 flood hazards so that we can be in comparison with them. They want to say that this way the state can't tell us what to do. That's not the case. We are being told that we have to do zoning. I'm pretty sure that's not going to be into the state hazard plan. So you care about my safety, but you could care less what's happening upriver, which is going to end up in my town, in my yard, and in my river corridors. So that's my frustration.
What happens upriver is not our town.
But it's still, what about my public safety? You guys keep saying it's about my public
We
safety.
can't do anything about it. The state will take care of that. But how are we supposed to regulate what people do in Stockbridge? That's what you're asking
This
for.
is zoning. I don't care what you say.
We are
If you-
controlling what we can control, and that is royalty. And we cannot tell Stockbridge what to do.
Well, don't say it's for my public safety, because it's not for my public safety. That's all I want you to stop saying. It has nothing to do with my public safety.
Beginning of zoning. Back door to zoning.
Right, it's a backdoor to zoning.
We're one of the
Stuart,
Oh,
math. I don't see any math.
And Matul.
Oh, okay. I see.
Hi, thank you, Matt Matul, Placedead Road. I just have two requests, I guess, and one is a reiteration of a request that I made in the July Planning Commission meeting at the Royalton Academy building, which was as I understand it, the town already has flood regulations or in place, and this document that's being put to a vote is an update to that, and it makes certain changes, and I'm sure certain of them are ministerial changes, and I'm sure there's 8, 10, 12 material changes. And I asked Gio if it was possible to get a red line of the document against the current regulations. And if not, some summary of what the most material changes are, because I read documents like this for a living, and it's not the easiest document to navigate. And I know different people may have difference of opinion. Some have been stated today. But I think if you're asking a town of 3,500 voters to vote on something that's as significant and novel and sweeping as this new bylaw is, that in addition to making the entirety of the document available, it would be helpful to have some kind of summary that flags what the 10 or 12 most material changes are, so that at least people will have that information in front of them, rather than trying to interpret the document as a whole. And then second request that I have, and I saw this when I went to the meeting on the 14th, and I was in the town hall, and I can see some of the images sort of behind some of the speakers, is we have some very nice, very large maps of the town on the walls in the building there. What I haven't been able to navigate, because I don't have a computer monitor that's big enough or a computer that's strong enough, is that when I try and access the actual floodplain map, it is not the most sort of informative, and certainly not the most clear. And it would be really beneficial, I think, if this is going to be the law of the town, so that we actually, and I know it changes and what have you, and we can say this is the map as of a certain date, but it would be really, really helpful for people to see exactly where the various zones are, because I think there would be a lot of surprise as to what is actually encompassed in the various zones, and where the 500-year lines are drawn, where the 100-year lines are drawn, where the river corridor is, and so on and so forth. And so I just put those two points on the record that I think would be helpful, and maybe will facilitate sort of a broader, more common understanding of what's actually been voted on by the select board and is being put to the town for voting at town meeting day.
Okay, I can answer one of those questions, and we have heard this before. The maps are very hard to display, to show everybody everything. You'd have to have a map pretty much the size of the wall to show the detail that you're talking about. So that's the best way to do it, is to look online at your property with the map behind it, and that will show you what affects where you are. It is difficult to find these maps and understand them, but they're not maps that we produce, they're FEMA maps. So.
And they are unwieldy.
There.
I have tried. And I can't tell what the little dotted area is, and the hashed area, and the grayed area, and the blue area, and the orange area. I mean, it's not, these are maps that you're expecting us to live by and to understand where we are and whether we need to go before the new town of, submit a permit and do all this other stuff. And I find it to be complicated, and a disincentive to really understand what's happening with this new bylaw.
Sure, Gio has a response.
There is a link in the ordinance that will take you to the FEMA flood maps. So it takes you to the website. You can Google this, you can put a specific street address into the search, and it is slow. You do have to be patient, but it will pull up that address that you put in with the map in a close-up view, and the legend is right there. So you can, if you go to those VEM maps, get.
I see you nodding, Anita. Does that mean?
It's very good, and I expanded it. I'm like, oh, there's my house. Oh, there's what we're in the, or whatever, ACE blah.
So you were,
500-year flood.
so you were able to.
It was a good map.
Yeah.
And you can put your own address in there.
Okay.
A couple of things since my name is used. So we do have a printed map here. It's in the office, the planning commission office, one of the roll-up maps, Victoria, if anybody wants to see it.
I mean, truthfully, if anyone comes in here asking me about a map, I pull it up on the computer and look at
Okay,
it.
so there we go. So, and I'm the flood hazard administrative officer in the town of Sharon. we never have any trouble going online, looking at the thing. I never have any trouble with landowners saying, that's not my land, or that's, oh, I can't see my house.
Mhm.
It's very clear. So that won't be a problem in my, estimation. The reason we don't have the differences in a document from the current flood hazard ordinance to the new one is it's a complete rewrite. It's apples to oranges. We didn't use the other one as a starting point. We basically threw it out and rewrote it. So that's why we don't have that. In terms of coming up with some of the bigger changes, Matt, you were at one of the meetings that I illustrated some of those bigger changes, and I talked about that, but I'm sure we could maybe come up with a document like that, that basically gave there's really, in my mind, just 3 major changes that have happened to it. While I'm got the floor here, I have to say, it is considered to be zoning. What we have now is zoning. We have a 100-year floodplain zone. We're just gonna expand what is zoned. There is a misnomer out there that what the state's gonna come up with, they've already passed it. And if you're hoping that it's the Dems who passed it and the governor wanted to veto it, you're wrong. The governor signed it. He's totally on favor. And if you listen to his budget speech today, he talked about it. He didn't talk about that bill, but he talked about, we need to get people out of the flood hazard area. We need to get rid of these things. So listen to his speech and this is going to happen. So do we want it controlled by us? Or do we want it controlled by Montpelier? Because that's what we're looking at. It's going to happen. And it is zoning, but it'll be statewide zoning in the 500-year floodplain, and it goes up into the river corridors. So don't think that the state isn't going to come up with something. The last thing I'll say is the town of Bethel, their planning commission contacted me. They're watching what we're doing. Tunbridge is watching what we're doing. Sharon already has a more strict ordinance than we have. So we're not the only ones who are doing this. This is happening. We're just a little bit ahead of the curve on this.
So I have a question for you about what the state's gonna come up with and what we're gonna come up with. What's your interpretation of what happens if we come up with our version first? Or is the state gonna say, no, that's not good? Have they already said that? Or have they said that if you have a plan, it's good enough? Or
If our plan is equal to the state, I don't know how they decide that. Somebody will have to decide, it won't be me. If our plan is considered to be equal to what the state has or more restrictive, they go with our plan. If our plan is less restrictive than what the state has, they'll go with the state plan.
so they could throw out our plan.
They could,
Theoretically, yeah.
yes,
Okay,
our plan could go to the wayside. Yes.
all right, so
I'd just like to say, I appreciate the efforts and the logic in a lot of ways about what's behind this and great comments there. I'm skittish of the details, who's gonna be the AO, who am I gonna, I hate those, AO, BO, A, or whatever, it's like a Russian novel, you gotta go back. Anyway, who are these folks? Who will they be? Will they be elected? So I'm skittish about the details and I don't like that part of it. I have a question about when and how is it gonna be voted on
it's gonna be voted
at town meeting?
at town meeting,
Australian ballot,
Australian ballot.
Can
which
that be
means
done?
You go to the polls and vote, not,
and you'll be able to do that ahead of time if you want.
Okay, that's.
Yep.
Thank you. Thanks.
and the AO is Walter, right?
Currently.
Currently, and that could change, but.
Yeah.
Walter Hastings is the AO. Administrative officer.
Okay.
He's our current AO.
Is that elected, appointed? What is it?
He's appointed.
Okay. Walter.
Walter.
Emily Simpson. I was just gonna reiterate a couple of things really quickly. I think it's good to offer kind of like a summary to the town folks that's gonna be really easy to digest about like what's in the plan. for people. I'm also on the planning commission. I would just like to offer myself up for people who have like personal questions about their properties. I'd be really happy to find a time and sit down and talk through questions. Or if folks are like feeling kind of concerned about one thing or another, I think maybe that might be a helpful way to at least clarify and maybe find other questions that can then be passed along if they're more complicated. Because one of the things I have really loved about living in Royalton is I think people do a really good job of looking out for each other. I saw that a lot after like the flooding in 2023. I think this is like a nice opportunity for us to kind of do that in like a more forward-looking way as well. So, and I do have property right on the White River, just for context there.
I think it's very important that what you're saying is, because it's important for somebody to understand what their property, how it affects their property. And you really can't do that by looking at a map of the whole town. You have to really zoom into that area to see, because it is, it is a fine line in some cases.
Could that be put on your tax bill?
What?
That you're in zone, da.
I have no idea.
It's just coming out, I don't.
It would be difficult, I think, because it all depends on a lot of things. Where you are and how big your parcel is and what the map looks like in that area.
No, I mean, that you are in the 100, 500. It's on the insurance.
Well, that'd be a question, I guess we could ask the listers if they had access to that. Maybe they could do something with that. It's probably gonna raise more questions than answer.
I do have that one last question that I was asked to wait on so others could speak.
Okay,
Again, this is Rana and Philip Tuthill, and my question is that I have a concern that at the last planning commission meeting that they have put it, and it's in the published minutes, that they're going to circulate a letter of support a few weeks before town meeting. If they're using public funds to circulate a letter of support, is that legal? I think a factual letter that is not biased would be more appropriate using public funds. What are your thoughts on that?
I can speak to that. The planning commission drafted a letter in support of it. It was unanimously passed by the planning commission. We are not going to be mailing it to everybody's address. It'll cost the town nothing. I'll send it into the newspaper and it'll go into the letters to the editor. It's no town expenditure here.
Okay.
Okay, are there any other questions?
I have another public comment, but not about the flood hazard.
Are we done with the flood hazard? Okay, go ahead, Sandy.
When I received the articles, the town is added on there a 1% meals and room tax and everything. Was there a public, so number one, was there a public meeting about that? And why didn't you not do that as an Australia ballot instead of just town meeting? And where would the funds go? Those are my three questions.
We wanted that to be a floor vote, and the reason is because we expect there to be discussion.
Hold on.
Yeah,
Royalton votes public questions from the floor. The select board does not have the option to put it onto Australian ballot because it's a public question. It is legally voted from the floor. That's how it goes.
So just the small amount of people at the town meeting is gonna vote whether we have a 1% tax on all our meals.
Yes, because the voters of Royalton have determined that public questions will be voted from the floor at town meeting. So that's how we decided.
And then why did you decide to do that? And where's the money going?
the reason for that is we were looking for solutions to why we have such a huge tax bill. And one of the answers we came up with was, what if we can find a way to pay for some of it from outside sources?
Tax bill on what? What's that mean?
Excuse me? Did you have?
Just keep going.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand the explanation that solutions to your huge tax bill. I guess I don't understand what that means.
Do you mind if I, do you
Yeah.
mind if I?
Sure, go ahead. No.
Sorry, I was late because my kids had Mrs. Duffy was here and she did many of these, a concert.
Winter concert.
So winter
And it
concert,
was awesome.
just stupendous.
All right.
They looked fabulous. We talked about this, I had brought it up, I'm in the service industry. I saw this when I worked in Woodstock, a 1% tax, option tax it was called. And so I have been thinking about it for a long time because I saw it in Woodstock that they have all this money coming in from people who don't live there. And, you know, I am still in the service industry and I work at Worthy Burger and I see a ton of people coming in from out of town. And so it was percolating in my head for a long time and I brought it up with the board a little bit ago. And, you know, everybody seemed like they were maybe, you know, interested or that it would be something that we would like to bring up to the voters because, we realized how much money it costs to run a town and we were just like trying to troubleshoot other options that could maybe potentially generate a little bit of income. And that's a really good question about where is this specific money gonna go? We kind of hadn't specified exactly where that funding would go. Like, would that go straight to the roads? Would that go straight to funding? I don't know. We don't know exactly right yet, but it could potentially be extra income that would be out of the pockets of hundreds of people who come through here from Boston on their way to Stowe. I see them every weekend and I want 1% of what they're spending.
Well, I appreciate your explanation of it, but that wasn't the question, and that wasn't. I was questioning the statement that was made that said it was a solution to our tax bill, and it's like I don't remember the town having a tax bill that they need to pay. I know I do.
No,
The question was the answer was confusing as to what tax bill does the town have?
No, I think Stuart was speaking in the more general in that regard, not the town specifically, but just as in all of us. What do we do? How do we try to absorb some of the costs that keep coming down the road?
Okay, I understand that. I find
Yeah.
it discouraging that because of one business doing well, that you're going to impose this if it passes by less than 200 people now that go to town meeting anymore. That if it passes, that because of one business that seems to do well, because quite frankly, as a local, I won't pay the prices that they charge there. But there are other businesses there, Granny's Kitchen, the other one there on the other side of the track, the co-op, that they're all going to get hit with this also. So, but it's us town people who shop there, buy local as it's tooted, and we all try to do. We're all going to pay again more because one business, the Worthy Burger, sees a lot of tourists. We're not a tourist town like Woodstock. That's one business out of all of the other little mom and pop shops and co-ops that are struggling. I just find it discouraging that you went through with this.
Well, it hasn't gone through yet.
Well, you put it to the voters who, but again, less than 200 people that show up.
Yeah, just for context, a 1% tax if you spend $15 on breakfast at Granny's Kitchen, which is usually what I spend. On like a nice breakfast sandwich and some home fries or whatever, it's 15 cents. So I really don't think the average folks who live here are gonna notice it too much. I hope that it would not be discouraging to those local smaller businesses, and I think it's a smart idea to try to capture as much of the tourist and passer through income as we can, even in those 15-cent increments. Those add up. I think someone mentioned Victoria did an estimate. Maybe that might be helpful to hear.
Off the top of my head, the rooms and meals option tax would be around $30,000 in revenue, based off of what the Department of Taxes reported collecting, which is potentially a little lower than our actual revenue because they don't report if there's less than 10 businesses that report their revenue, but rough estimate, which is also why the select board, you know, you're not gonna see it as a revenue in the general fund because one, we don't know exactly how much it would be if we collected it. Two, we don't know if it's going to pass. So we're not gonna count that as a revenue that we're going to depend on until it's actually available.
But we could track it.
Yeah.
Yep, absolutely.
And
It will
put it
come
in the
in,
next year.
if
Well,
it
and
does
if-
pass, it'll come in
I
quarterly
I
from
was
the
gonna
state
say,
of Vermont. We'll
and if
know
it-
how much it is. The select board will have to decide where to put it when it comes in.
Right, once, if it
and then
passes
next
and
year
we
you
start
can
getting money, then we'll
Right.
have to
Know
have
what
the
to do.
discussion about
Yes.
where do we put it.
And now for clarification, this, I know like people were mentioning the co-op and stuff, this is just a tax on prepared meals
Yes,
and beverages, right? So it's if I go out to have a beer or if I go out and buy breakfast, it's not my groceries.
Correct.
It's on lodging too. though.
yeah, it's rooms and meals, so
Like Airbnb.
Which is definitely people from outside of town because
Lodge.
my partner doesn't charge me rent.
We currently don't get anything from them, right?
Nothing.
nothing.
We get nothing from rooms that are empty at the moment.
All right, Stuart.
Thank you.
Bye.
Okay. Megan Asprey still around? Yes.
Still on there.
Megan, hung in there.
Yep, I'm still here. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, just
Yeah.
give it.
Okay, great. My name's Megan. I am a planner with Two Rivers Ottaquechee Regional Commission, and I just wanted to join you all briefly to discuss municipal planning grants. I have been speaking with members of your planning commission, and other members of the community, and folks would like to go after a municipal planning grant to do a housing study on the Hope Field parcel. So obviously housing is a known issue in our region, and Hope Field was identified by members of your community as an ideal property to review because of town sewer and water, and a likely Act 250 exemption because it's walkable and bikeable to downtown. And this housing study would build off the visioning project from last year with Sarah Raitt from our office. So I'm just here letting you know about this interest and seeing if anybody has any immediate questions, because I'll be sending a municipal planning grant resolution for select board signatures so that we can go ahead with this. Any immediate reactions from anybody? Any questions?
I'd like to go ahead with it. I
That's
think there's great need for housing in this town.
You're talking about the Hope Fields across from the high school.
Yeah,
Right. So this municipal planning grant would just essentially it would just allow us to hire like engineer architect type folks to assess the area and see what kind of housing could fit there. It's not any kind of development at this moment. It's just a study to see what could benefit the community and what could go there.
Is it 100% grant?
There's a 10% match. So for example, if we requested $10,000 from the state, there'd be a $1,000 match from Royalton.
As I said, I think it's a worthwhile study.
I'm a little hesitant because we haven't floated the idea past the voters, and sometimes they're pretty passionate about things like Hope property.
well, But it would
Sure.
also be a very small investment to have more information to present to said skeptical voters.
Mhm.
Yes.
And I
Yeah.
also do need to flag that the date to submit is the end of March. So we're trying to move more quickly on this.
That helps.
Have you talked to the recreation department at all about this?
Not specifically. I've talked to different members of the planning commission. I'm not sure if they're also involved with recreation, but I can add them to my list for outreach.
Yeah, that's a good idea because they use that field all the time. And so,
But I think that they're also well aware that using that field is not a forever solution
I know, I
for,
just.
for rec purposes.
It's-
Frankly, it needs to be used for something else.
Oh,
it-
does it? I don't know.
I mean, with where it's situated and the fact that it has sewer and water, and is right downtown.
But I guess, Patrick, what I'm saying is it can't hurt to talk to the people who currently do use it.
No,
No, I think it'd be nice to get it back on the town tax roll. Some housing.
there is that.
But, and one more question, isn't that next to a little section of a flood zone?
No.
It is. It is.
It-
I can personally tell you that I've
It's right through there. Yep.
I've looked at that property several times because of flooding and how it's impacted the neighbors. So it would have to be extend beyond the whole property to capture the flooding before it gets there to direct it. It's does flood fairly regularly, and I think it would be in the new, if that flood ordinance, I'm sorry, flood
Bylaws.
proposal
Regulation. Whatever.
goes, we might find ourselves in the flood zone or floodplain.
But that would be part of the feasibility
Study,
study.
yeah.
Yeah.
That area is along the stream that's on the northern part of that parcel. So maybe the study could focus on the southern part.
Yeah, so as everybody already noted, this study would definitely take into consideration flooding and how that could impact the property. But again, so this request is just to review the property, just to study it. It's not to actually develop or anything like that. It's just a step in reviewing. And if I don't want to take up much of your time, I think you're probably a little behind schedule. But if anyone, excuse me, if you have any further questions, you can always reach out to me. I'm again Megan Asbury with Two Rivers. And my email, Victoria has it. And I can go through this process further, but I can send you the form and some more information. And I'm also going to talk to the Planning Commission next week if anybody is interested in attending that meeting.
Is the property for sale, or is the town would
The
be
town
considering
owns
to
The
develop?
town owns the property.
I understand, but is the town gonna build whatever?
No.
No.
So what, I don't understand what the purpose of the feasibility study is.
So the purpose would be for if the town wanted to put something there to see what it would look like to perhaps sell it to a developer or something like that, and what kind of property could work on that field.
So the town would spend money trying to determine whether it would support structure or housing for which it would then need to construct and then sell to a developer? Or
No. The town wouldn't have to construct anything. So the feasibility study is just to see what might be able to work given the physical constraints of the property. And
Sounds like it now might include the new bylaw, which might impact the
Sure.
ability or the marketability or the feasibility study. I mean, it sounds a bit circular, and this type of analysis is usually done by someone considering acquiring the land.
Right.
So the grant would allow us to apply for funding that would cover the study before we have to do anything else with the property.
What it would do, Matt, is it would help, it would give the town the information, right? And a potential vision so that if it was a place where we decided it would be great to sell to someone to develop, to put said housing on, it would be a marketing tool and it would be an informational tool to try to generate, interest and actually help sell the thing and to get housing going. Was that a helpful answer at all?
Sounds mighty speculative, but,
Well, and that's where the grant portion of the answer comes in, because it will cost the town, very little to get this speculative information, which could in fact help us make decisions.
Can I ask, is the planning commission considering the study that's already been done?
Yeah, this is meant to
With-
build the visioning
right.
exercise.
Right, I guess I'm asking the planning commission. I'm sorry, Megan.
Sorry.
Is, are you prioritizing what that study found?
Yeah, I mean, trying to build off of that study, yes.
I would, like, I don't disagree with any of this, but we're gonna have two board members in about 1 month. And maybe their input would be helpful as well.
Helen, you got your hand up?
Yeah, I just had a question and a comment. Was wondering if Megan had an idea of the cost overall, if we're paying only 10%. Is there a ballpark of what the overall study would-
Yeah. So
what
in
would-
talking to some of our senior staff at Two Rivers, some housing studies in our region have gone between 15,000 to 20,000. So at most, the cost of the town could be $2,000 if we went for a $20,000 grant. But it's also up to the Agency of Commerce and Community Development as to what they want to grant to us. But no matter what, the match for the town is only 10%.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, no problem.
And my comment is just echoing the reaching out to the rec program. I know it's not on everybody's radar that we're in a flood hazard, I guess. We haven't talked about it enough today. Hope Field is the option when Carpenter isn't usable. And to take that without having another option in mind when Carpenter is underwater would be a little sensitive, I think, to our rec program.
No, and that's actually almost clairvoyant of you, Todd, because this is really part of a bigger effort by the planning commission to try to get a grasp on town infrastructure, town properties, what's available, what's not available, and also, there's a movement afoot both here and with the planning commission to try to come up with some sort of, I was going to say better, but an actual plan for all of these pieces to come together. We've got a big piece of property here that's being used and is slated to be used mostly, for a good portion of it to be used for extraction, but that's not forever. Carpenter Field, with the flooding, it's not necessarily, unfortunately, a long-term solution for sports fields. So where do we put things? And how do we do it in a thoughtful manner so that we're using all of our resources instead of doing it piecemeal? Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. I guess I had one more question regarding Carpenter, and maybe this is for another time. But is there an option to do the testing for extraction there when they do the testing that they're going to do over at the Carpenter Field or the Crawford property? Or is that not an option?
I don't think no.
They've been donated. Because it's all so like you're gonna take from one, why not take from the other type of thing?
Well, I don't think we can.
Gotcha. Thank you.
I don't think we can use it for that.
Yep. That was my question, I guess. Thank you very much.
Megan, are you all set?
Yep, I'm all good. I'll go ahead and send the select board the relevant information. And again, I can be reached via email or phone. And my information is online as well as with the town. Thank you all.
Okay. Thank you, Megan, and thank you for hanging out and patiently.
Yep, have a great night.
Okay, we're gonna move on to highway department. Tim, do you have a guardrail quote?
I don't have it. I can find it. I forwarded it. I thought I forwarded it.
Yeah, we did get some email.
Right.
Do you have it or no?
I do not have it in front of me now.
I don't have anything in front of me.
Let me see if I can find it.
Off the cuff, I think it was about 8,700.
Yeah, that's in the ballpark, I would say. You're absolutely right. Along with some material that we would bring from our pit. It doesn't need to be anything more than sand. Just to anchor the two ends. This is for Sherlock Road for folks who don't know. It's not ideally located, this culvert, which is very large, and it might be subject to, I think Victoria might have mentioned once, a box culvert replacement at some point. But in the meantime, we have 15-foot wide safe travel lane for two-way traffic, which isn't enough, and the current guardrails are just bent over. So I met with the company Lafayette, who have given me a lot of information over the past year or so, and I met him out on the site, and he looked at it. He prepared a quote. I think Victoria's right around. She nailed it, $8,700. That they could fix something, but not until a little bit later in the spring. Right now, it'd be really tough to do. I think that we should go forward with it. It's been brought to our attention once by one of our townsfolk, and I think that's a reasonable price. And part of the bigger picture, to have them have the same company come out and maybe ride our roads to prioritize places in the future.
So, Tim, you're saying that right now there's only a 15-foot travel way?
Yep, that's it. That's safe. That is safe.
And so if the guardrail work is done, will that improve at all? Or is that
It
what
will
we're at?
not improve the width, but it'll improve. I mean, right now, I would guesstimate that it's about a 9-foot drop if you go off the road. And unfortunately, it's at the bottom. So if certain conditions existed, which are not unlikely, where it's icy, and you lost control going down the hill, it's very believable that you could go off. And as it was brought to my attention pretty intensely last year at town meeting, and then we had Brian Thomas come in and report on it and asked if we could follow up. I tried seeing if what was there of ours could be repaired. There's no chance of that. I asked if we could put Jersey barriers up for temporary. That would close it off too much because they would require more of a footprint, and we're already only talking 15 feet. We'd also neck it down to a point where our plow might have a hard time. I think that the quote from Lafayette is very good, and I think when they come, whoever's sitting in my position after town meeting should take an opportunity to see if they can drive some of our roads to see where they would prioritize or where we should focus next.
All right, so let's.
I would make a motion to accept their proposal, Lafayette's proposal, and I believe I would, which is for $8,700 I will find it. Just give me a second. And a couple of, loads of our, material to, put, down for an anchor. Uh, uh, Might not be able to find it. I'm gonna try.
We all have faith in you, Tim.
Oh, man, you're putting your faith in a bad spot.
I get an email from somebody that had that quote in it.
Yeah, that was me.
Got it.
There it is.
I've got it.
$8,685 with traffic control provided by the town. Otherwise, they'll be contracted.
At
Right.
$15 an hour.
I think we can do the traffic. I think we should.
Is that a motion?
I'll second Tim's motion.
Any more discussion? All those in favor of accepting the motion, say aye.
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 I think in an earlier meeting when I talked to Lafayette, they have used guardrails, which are and new, and some combination. I used plug in a number for our budget this coming year, which has been woefully low. But I think that we should get in contact with them when we tell them that we approve this work, that we would like to get them on schedule to do a site visit. They have 2 times of the year, I believe it's spring and fall, that they're really busy. They have times when they have more time in their schedule to look at. They're really, really great. They're very responsive, and they show up when they say they're gonna.
So does this quote tell them that they're gonna start whenever they can, or do we have to contact them or something?
I think you have to contact them and ask them, like, is it gonna be April, or I'm gonna guess that they're gonna say May 1st when they believe that the frost is suitable for installing this.
Suggest we just offer the May 1st or you know.
Yeah, that's
whenever possible.
that sounds great.
Okay, annual certification of road miles. I have the form here in front of me. 93.957 miles. Oh, no.
Any change from last year? We haven't-
Yeah,
Yes,
there's,
2 changes from last year.
there's new highway 0.021 miles of CL 30. Oh, because of the D24 project, bridge project.
So the mileage of Route 14 decreased or increased, I'm sorry.
Decreased.
As a result of the change to the Vesper underpass.
Oh, gee.
So that gets reported as class 1 road.
Interesting.
Wow.
And also, the section of
Stearns
Stearns
Road.
Road
Stearns Road we took off.
between Windsor and the railroad tracks no longer meets the standard of a class 3 road, so it has been removed from our road mileage.
And then another.
We've got to sometime remove it from the town.
We
Go through
do
that
need
process.
to go through the process to throw
Yeah.
up that segment, yes.
Okay, so there is a slight decrease, in the,
There's an overall decrease in class 3 road mileage.
That's a tiny amount
It's a very small amount.
on both counts.
But this is required every year, correct, Victoria?
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
I make a motion to accept.
I'll second your motion, Tim.
in favor,
Ken.
say aye.
This is the easiest thing we'll do all night.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, next one, stormwater master plan, scheduling a meeting.
The town opted to participate in stormwater master planning and the state, contracted. The contracted party reached out and requested an initial meeting with the road foreman and, potentially one or two other members of the select board. And no one responded to that email when it was sent, so here it is on the agenda.
We were all secretly hoping that if, la, 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 la.
Yeah, well,
I make a motion to send Nell. I won't be here.
Yeah. You wanna go?
The
So-
objective-
Clearly, I completely ignored your email, so if you could just,
It just came through though.
you just,
we've been talking about this stormwater master
Yeah.
plan for the better part of a year now. Started a while ago, the initial planning stages. But the intent is to identify areas of the town that could potentially have stormwater projects done to improve water quality. So this initial stormwater master planning is to identify those areas, develop a plan for the town overall, which then opens the door to the follow-up grant funding to actually be able to accomplish some stormwater projects.
okay.
So I just want to say that the whole property would benefit because there's a tremendous amount of water coming off the Oxbow up by Jerry Barcelow's, which if we could manage that, we could probably have more options for the whole property. I really think that we should consider signing up for this, sending some folks there.
I mean, we are signed up for it.
Yeah.
I need a lucky select board
I'll
member or two.
So Nell is volunteering.
And do we have any idea of like when, how, what's, I mean, is it all, the meeting all here?
They would like, so the information that I received is it's a limited amount of time from the town. The initial kickoff meeting, identification of potential areas, potentially some site visits. Maybe 20 hours over the course of a year that you
Okay.
might have to answer some emails and attend some meetings.
Fine, I will also.
Sounds good.
Do either of you have general times during business hours that are typically available that I could propose a meeting?
It can be normally pretty available during typical business hours.
Okay.
Wednesday,
Unavailable Wednesday.
Wednesdays?
yeah, that's the best
Okay.
one. And I could work around whatever time.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Next one's overweight permits. We've got a permit here for fleet for 4 trucks. First one is a 3-axle, 60,000. Second one is a 4-axle, 69,000. Third one is a tractor trailer, 5 axles, 80,000, and a tractor trailer, 6 axles, 99,000. And
They're all good.
they're all good. Yep. All right. So since you're not here, Tim, I'll sign it.
Yes.
Stuart, I'm realizing I haven't put your highway access permits back on your agenda.
Oh, let's have a report from, I looked at, Gee Hill, the access permit on Gee Hill. Tim, you looked at Gilman Road and apparently that was approved or sent in.
Yep.
Yes.
And Royalton Hill, I have seen it in the past and see no problem with that spot, but I did not make a site visit this week. So, the one on Gee Hill is a clear line of sight. There is a knoll south of or downhill of the driveway. But it wouldn't hide a car, so I think it's okay. And there's no drainage problem because it's all gonna drain into the stream that has to be crossed by the driveway. So I think that one's okay. Unless anyone,
Remind me where on Key that is.
it's, after you go through the S turn and then there's like a rise before you
Mhm.
get to the top of the hill. It's like half a mile from the top of the hill.
Kind of like where the Hudsons are.
Well, that's what I'm calling the top of the hill.
Yeah.
So it's downhill from there.
On the left.
On the left.
Okay.
And there's a gentle slope going up through the woods to connect to the property that, is trying to be accessed, and it's really the only place they can put one. I don't see any problem with it though.
Are they going, there's a culvert there already?
No, there's no culvert there.
Same side of the road as Hudson's.
No.
Yeah,
Other
side.
side.
It's connecting to
Yeah.
the property that comes down by the fox stand. It's a long.
Yep.
You know. Stretch. But I don't see any problem with that one. And the one over on Johnson Hill is, on Royalton Hill, not Johnson Hill, sorry. That one's on a slope, but it's a clear view. And there's gonna have to be some. I mean, there's a pretty good hill up there, so if it could be a drainage issue if they don't have it in the notes that it has to be properly drained.
On Gilman, it was absolutely great, sight lines, everything. Do we approve names of roads? For these new,
No, I think the listers do that per road.
because the sign that's up on the one I reviewed was no friggin' way. Was the name of the road,
Was it
honestly.
a regular
Took a
sign
picture
or
of
a homemade one?
Anybody can order those signs.
Yeah.
It's not
Okay.
a legal road name. It's just the sign that someone ordered.
I think we have to approve them because when we got the Goodrich Field,
You do not have to approve the names of private lanes.
It's a
No.
driveway. No,
It
town
would-
road, yeah,
Yeah, it
Yeah.
would be a
Well,
driveway, not a private
as-
lane.
but if it was a town road,
yeah.
If so, my last act as a select board member would be to make a motion to approve that name.
okay. Merck grant,
Oh, that one's me, huh? So you guys received a grant through the state to do efficiency improvements on the Royalton Academy building and the town garage.
Mhm.
It's a big grant.
It is a big grant. It's almost $500,000. I do not personally have any capacity to manage that right now, particularly through the procurement process. So I reached out to Two Rivers and asked them to send a proposal, which the board received this morning. Two Rivers proposal is at a cost of 10% of the grant for management, which is typical. They will, I did clarify with them today that they will take care of the procurement, the historic preservation piece that we're gonna need for the academy building. They'll assist us with some project oversight, and then the management of the grant, which entails compiling the written reports that the state is going to require quarterly and submitting for reimbursement on our behalf. Looking for the board to accept that if they so choose.
I make a motion, we accept their proposal to manage the Merck grant.
Second,
any further discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Guys have it. Okay. Approval of the minutes.
Make a motion to approve the minutes from our last
The
meeting.
10% comes off of the grant.
Correct, it is
Yes.
paid through the grant.
And hopefully they get frozen by current
Mm.
administration.
So these particular funds are actually some remainder of the state's ARPA funding, which is funding that the state already has in hand. You'll
Okay.
recall that's why the board signed the agreement before the end of December.
Right.
Good.
Of course, we remember that.
It's my job to know where the money is and where it comes from.
Yeah. Make a motion to approve the minutes from our last meeting.
Somebody's gotta know. Okay.
I'll second that.
Second it. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Warrants,
You've reviewed them, and I think we've all signed them, so make motion to approve the warrants.
I'll second that.
Yes, but when we go forward into the new. Whatever happens, the new year, the town new year, I don't know, maybe we could. Make these a little bit better. I believe that Victoria told us that we had to. Really be documenting our road work more thoroughly, and these forms don't make a lot of sense to me, and I don't.
They do if you have the key. We can have a conversation about that.
Okay.
It would, like,
But, I mean, I still think that they could be.
You're not incorrect,
I would
but
like to see them a
it's
little more
different conversation.
legible,
Yeah.
Right,
because some of them are very hard to read.
well, just because it was on the warrants, I just wanted to tag
Yeah.
that comment on.
Okay.
Because I didn't know when else to slip it
I
in.
got you.
Some of these things just like
Go by.
zoom by
Yeah.
and you can't even
Yeah.
like catch them.
Ethics liaison,
You need a select board member appointed to the,
doesn't have to be.
I emailed the board about the ethics requirements that were passed by the legislature and the need to appoint a liaison by the end of January. Stewart subsequently has received some emails from the states requesting the appointment of a liaison. Stewart sent me an email and asked if I would be able to take on that responsibility. I am happy to have a discussion with the board about accepting that responsibility, but I would like to have a conversation about my compensation. And I'm happy to do that as part of this meeting or an executive session at whatever the board would prefer.
What do you see as a time commitment for this?
I don't know what the time commitment is. The state, I don't think knows what the time commitment is.
Hence everyone's
They've
hesitance.
just finished developing the actual training. None of it is required until September, so I couldn't even begin to ballpark what the expectation is going to be.
Well, I think it's certainly fair that if you are compensated for your time, or you're looking for something in addition to your time and travel.
I sent an email to the board in August when you were talking about compensation, detailing that I felt I was being undercompensated in my role. Since that time, the board declined to have a conversation with me about my request, which is fine. But in December, the town of Randolph hired a finance director whose role was strictly finance. And that was advertised at a starting salary of $80,000 a year. The town of Waitsfield, which is over in Mad River, started advertising for a town administrator at the beginning of December at a starting salary range of $70,000 to $80,000 a year, and that position is still vacant. The village of Orleans, which is way up in the Northeast Kingdom, very small population, is advertising for a future town manager, which is really a town administrator until you have the authority to hire a town manager at a salary of $50,000 to $100,000 a year. And just 2 weeks ago, the city of Lebanon posted a deputy finance administrator at a salary of $95,000 to $125,000 a year. I am not just the town of Royalton's select board assistant. I am your finance manager. I am your benefits manager. I am the person that people call when they can't get the road crew. I attend all of your select board meetings. I manage millions of dollars in grants for the town. And I feel that I'm not being fairly compensated. And I would like to have a conversation about that before you ask me to take on additional statutory responsibility that involves managing the select board and also the other elected officials of the town.
Well, I think this is content for an executive session, so. We can either do that or we can schedule one.
The state would like to know your appointment by the 31st of this month.
Yeah, this is a different,
So
I believe this is a different thing. I mean, the liaison is. We're not talking about a town manager, we're not talking about a finance manager, we're talking about an ethics liaison.
I
Which
understand that.
involves some training. And what I was looking for is somebody who is in a position that expects to be there. The select board rotates. We
I-
are in and out
I
of this
fully
office. every
understand
year.
why the request
So,
was made, and I don't begrudge you for making the request.
I'm looking for somebody that might, if you're gonna be enforcing ethics rules, it's somebody that should be a permanent employee, not a floating employee. So,
Can you hire somebody, can you appoint somebody outside of the select board or our administrator?
yes, we can. Well, we can, I believe it was a town administrator. I wasn't sure about outside of that, but, in the meantime, we could certainly put a name in there of the select board, and we can probably change it later.
That would be my thing, Stuart. I think you should do it because you're continuing on after town meeting. And have those conversations. Not try to fit it between today and the 31st. Yep, that's my recommendation. Remember, I'm on my way out.
It also seems like an ethics person should be someone who isn't working for the town. Because they may be questioning Victoria's ethics. Or one of the select board members or the road committee ethics. Is it something that should be done privately? I don't know.
Well, the position is a new, well, not a
Yeah.
position, but
Well, that's the thing, is
requirement
nobody really knows
new
until
Yeah.
September what.
I mean, the ethics trainings are coming out now. They
Yeah.
were recently posted. They're not required until September. But the state wants a liaison, presumably so that they can communicate directly with one person at the town on a consistent basis.
Mhm.
And I would assume that they are looking for that person to ensure that everyone who is statutorily required to have this ethics training has completed their ethics training. They're looking for a consistent point of communication between the town and the ethics commission. And their request was an employee of the town.
Request or suggestion?
Their request was that the law says that you have to inform them of your ethics liaison by January 31st. And their suggestion is that it's appropriate for an employee of the town to take on that role.
Okay, another option might be Carmen, because it's the town clerk, or, anybody else in this office that, would be appropriate.
Well, I would suggest that temporarily we appoint the chair of the select board to be the ethics liaison. And maybe this can be readdressed in April or something with the new select board.
If that's a motion, I would second.
I think that sounds like a good solution for the interim. Any other thoughts? Okay, all those in favor?
I
Aye.
It seems so weird that they're forcing this when even the legislature has such a problem with an ethics policy.
I would say the government in general.
Yeah.
Well, I understand that they want someone in there. But
Yeah.
I mean, it's, finding the right person for it is, it's not like a job you hire for, I don't think, but
Yeah.
whatever. I will accept that,
Thank you.
not, I'm not voting for it. Do we have any other business?
I mean, I guess just this, Victoria's business.
Well, I think that's, you mean, what she was just talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah, that should be, go into executive session if we wanted to discuss that further.
Hey, Stuart, I have hung out because the conversation on the public comment session went really long, and I wanted to make sure you guys got through sort of the rest of your business. I just had one thing from the last meeting that I wanted to follow up on, if that's all right.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. I raised the issue of the tree cuttings and brush and pushed off on the side of Placehead Road and Broadbrook Road. Also, the minutes that you've all just approved noted that I undertook to follow up with the select board by email. I have done so, which included 2 emails that were sent in September or October of 2024. I sent my email maybe about a week ago. I'm not looking for anything other than an acknowledgement that the email has been received and that will be considered. I understand, based on sort of Victoria's experience, that maybe emails come in and don't get responses. I'm not looking for anything right now, but other than an acknowledgement that the email that was sent to select board, has been received and
I
will
can
be
do better than
considered.
that.
Okay.
I spoke to Demi today. We went and did a site visit to the Slack Road. And well, I had him, I talked to him about the brush, asked him if he would take a look at it. He said he'd look at it in the spring. It's not really a good time of year to be poking around in the brush, in the snowbanks for it. I believe he is willing to do something, but as far as cleaning up what's there, if there's some specific spots, he was under the impression that he could let it decompose on the side of the road, which I told him that you were not happy with that. So the thing to do is to, you mentioned in one of your letters that there's a spot that you would prefer in putting the brush, and that, would that be the brush pile in the field down by the foot of the hill below brush rods, or?
Most of the time, I mean, the town has used our, our so-called stump dump, which is up the Pent Road, up behind the cemetery, or up by the cemetery. That's been where most of the debris has been deposited, with the Ballamacree sort of ascent and appreciation. And so that would be sort of my preference. Alternatively, if the town wants to contribute to our annual winter solstice bonfire, material, then putting it in that field would be another option. But one of the two, it's just not appropriate where it is right now.
I understand.
Yeah, I don't like how they leave all the brush along the edges of the roads. It looks unsightly all over.
Well, especially if you're trying to have a well-groomed field, and you don't want brush that you're gonna run into with equipment. And so we had the conversation. It'll need to be brought back up again in the spring when they do brush clearing, but he seemed to think that they don't do a whole lot of brush clearing anyway. But when they do, and they're in that area, we'll try to keep them pointed in the right direction.
No, that's fine. Yeah, I think at the last meeting you said it hadn't been done in 30 years. I don't want to wait, 30 years for it to decompose for the next time to come around. So, but I appreciate anything that can be done. I mean, like I said at the meeting, I'm undertaking to clean up a lot of Placehead Road. There's a lot of vines sort of growing into the trees and everything else. And, if that material gets swept up, I'm sure Denny wouldn't mind not having to deal with it. It's more just for awareness and the principle of the thing, that it's just, I think, unfair to the townsfolk to just push that stuff onto their property and hope for the best.
There was a mention of a chipper. I guess we have a chipper that's old and in disrepair, but if they did chip it, would it be acceptable to chip it on site, or would that be something that you'd rather just have it moved?
It could be chipped into the side, into the area, because that will certainly decompose a lot more readily than, the tree trunk that's there and all the branches and sort of everything else. So,
All right.
okay. Thank you very much. I appreciate the consideration.
And we note your perseverance, Matt.
I will be back in the spring, I guess. No, that's
I wouldn't be surprised.
See you then.
okay. Thank you all.
So on other business, I did look at the driveway on Stearns Road. And in my opinion, that is a driveway. I know it's listed as a road, third-class road, but it's trimmed like a driveway. It's got a stone wall winding up along it. It's a narrow road. There's a tree in the way of this plow. For a number of reasons, I think it's, we may want to consider turning around at the turnaround or sending Demi up there with a one-ton truck, but he has issues with doing that because it requires a special trip. Another option would have been to throw up that part of the road, but that would take it off tax roll and it would cause change in value because of the house would be on a fourth-class road instead of a third. So I think the least expensive and maybe the simplest solution is to plow it with the one-ton truck. But
I thought that made sense when that came up last time.
There's a number of roads that would be better off with a one-ton around,
Yeah,
than
well,
a big, huge.
it isn't being done, so. I guess there are some issues with the truck too. Truckers having problems.
Of course, there are questions.
Yeah, well,
You don't want to do it, it's gonna have troubles.
so it didn't come back up today, so we have I have eyes on it and see what I know what they're talking about now.
I
And
think we have a responsibility to plow that section of the
We
road.
do.
And if it means using the one-ton truck, and then that's what we should be doing. And if there's problems with the one-ton truck, then we can address those as well. I think he probably needs that for other things.
yeah, the other issue would be if we don't use that solution, we'd have to improve the road or have the landowner improve the road so that it meets the requirements, which would be mostly the width.
This road got necked down over time and nobody's really at fault. Nobody's trying to do something, but put a backup generator in and some plantings that just narrowing that down.
Well, the stone wall also is
Yeah.
contributing to the narrowness of the road. And I can see us having to rebuild a stone wall if the plow takes the stone wall out. So, yeah, one ton is
Is it a historic stone wall or a new one?
new one.
So
That they built in the town right away?
Well,
Or
it's
somebody
on the edge of the lawn between the house and the road and
Yeah.
it winds, so it's not, it's more decorative than, I mean, it's functional too, but.
and the previous select board, however, they came to the conclusion that they were okay, or they blessed the placing. The builder never looked at putting where they put the garage. They put it in a logical spot, but it was at the head of a class 4 road.
Well, it doesn't look like that section of from the driveway, from the turnaround to the house, does not look like it's old road. It looks like it's a driveway.
Yeah, no, I get that. Emmy, at one point, before the garage and stuff, had a little bit more room to turn around at, worst case scenario, 2 o'clock in the morning during a heavy snow. I think there's a lot of factors that led to this. None of them was anybody's bad intent.
Well, the other thing that should have happened, which didn't, was, I guess, last summer, when you came to an agreement with the landowner, there should have been something in writing, because a verbal agreement is forgotten.
No, all we said was we would revisit it when he did a few improvements. Yeah.
Okay.
That should
Okay.
have been recorded, and I thought it was, actually, but perhaps it wasn't.
Did they build the garage?
It's on me.
That
No, that was Dodge.
was Henry Dodge built that one. So it's 30 years old.
Henry
Yeah.
Dodge built what?
The garage.
No, no, Bud Ferris.
Oh, okay, it wasn't Peterson then.
No, it
Um,
was him and another local.
well, I'm sure this issue will be back.
I tried to clear up more than I caused. Issues. I'm not sure I was successful at that.
Okay, any other business tonight?
None here.
So we have 2 more meetings before town meeting. And the last one is pre-town meeting.
Right.
Does the board have any objections if I try to secure, the Chase Center for pre-town meeting over the Academy building?
I think it's a better decision if you can get it.
We should have Zoom capability there, I think.
I will make sure that we have at least the ability to record the meeting, hopefully soon, but
They do Zoom meetings from there, so.
Yeah, it might be a little difficult to manage with the crowd, but
I think you just have to communicate it well, because people have been going to the Academy building for a few years now. That's the biggest thing. Somebody will miss the memo.
Memo and put one of those sandwich boards in front of the Academy building.
Yeah,
Is it
change of location.
Space, for space purposes?
Space
yeah,
and
so
parking.
when we did the ATV ordinance. Meeting at the Academy building, we got a lot of feedback that it was dark, there's not enough room for people to park, they were, parking and then trying to get across Route 14 in the dark. And then, of course, everybody was crammed into the meeting space at the Academy building. So just a consideration of more space for people to comfortably park and enter the room and participate.
What about the school?
I don't know if we'll be able to get the school on a Tuesday night. I believe there's usually basketball. I don't know if basketball is done by February break.
No, it's not.
Chase Center's all set up for meetings and mics. They're good at accommodating programs. Or at least they have always with me.
do they have mics at the desks or is
Yeah.
it just in the?
At the podium, they do. Yeah.
I meant that in the audience.
Oh, yeah, they have ones they walk around with.
I don't know, I don't know why, but my gut is like, I don't know if that's a good idea, there's so many, things on this, that are on this town meeting, that seem maybe alienating to people, and then to then have the meeting in a place that doesn't feel like that's the Chase building isn't really part of our town, that's part of the law school. That's the way it feels. I'm not saying that personally. I enjoy it as a space. I just feel like some people might feel like that it's not part of their town.
I can see that.
And with all this stuff that we are bringing out to discuss, I don't know if it's, I don't know, it just seems like
I think that
one more disconnection.
the advantage of having a microphone and hopefully a Zoom meeting there would make it worth having it there. Just because you could get more people to listen in.
I think people are, I would listen to Nell. Not that I disagree that it's a great space. I'd be careful of the disconnect, and I'd be careful of, I think they feel as though the Academy building is theirs and part of the community. I'd think about this one carefully.
Well, we're gonna have to decide
Yeah,
what does. Have we got any strong feelings either other way? I mean. I guess we should have a roll call vote, see who wants to. Have it at the academy and who wants to have it at Chase, and we still have to find out if it's available.
my vote would be first, choice would be the Academy building.
Well,
I agree with that.
I like the idea of the Chase building because of things I mentioned, but I also understand your points.
I do too. There's no disrespect.
Yeah, me too.
I don't have a strong feeling on this one. I mean, I think that from a logistical standpoint, the Chase Center may be a better choice. But what you're talking about is not logistics,
It's emotions.
Yeah.
And yes, logistically, yes, makes sense, Chase, totally, but.
I appreciate you, Victoria, for bringing up the feedback that you got from that last meeting.
If we do it at the academy, we're gonna have to have some help in parking and lights crossing Route 14 there. 'Cause it's gonna be a crowd at night.
Yeah.
I think we can request our PD to assist.
I won't see why not.
And doing a Zoom there is difficult.
It's impossible.
It's impossible.
Well, we don't have the equipment
Yeah,
for that. I mean,
Yeah.
unless we hire somebody, right?
yeah.
Well,
Sometimes we can hire Seth Stoddard,
Okay,
but it depends on whether or not he's filled.
if he's available, so then we have to hire Seth and bring the PD in for parking, and it's still dark and difficult, and so, I mean, there's the emotion of there being a disconnect, but there's also the emotions of I mean, don't we have to zoom it?
I think
It's a
we
lot.
do.
It's a longer walk into Chase.
Okay.
You have to have a recording of it. I don't believe you're required to have hybrid participation. I will double check, but I do not believe that's part of the requirement to have hybrid participation, but you do have to have a recording for open
Okay.
meeting law.
Okay.
Hmm.
But we have to have a hybrid option for a regular meeting.
Don't believe you do have to have. it.
Oh.
I would need to double check because we just do hybrid.
Sure,
So
sure,
it's
sure.
not something that I really laser focused in on.
No, I
But
just,
I believe the open meeting law requirement is to have a recording, not that you always have to have hybrid available. But I would need to double
Okay.
check.
I think the way it's worded is if you're using. There's something about it. But yes, double check. That would be the proper thing to do.
well,
When
so,
does
but,
the report go to the printer? Or
As soon as possible. I was hoping to already have it to the printer.
okay, 'cause
Ideally, now that I've got Patrick's update to the select board report, I'll be able to format the rest of the report, and I was hoping to send it tomorrow, because then Spalding will print a proof. We'll have some time to review the proof and then get it printed and in the mail. Last year, from the time that we approved the proof at the printer to the time that people actually started getting them was about 2 weeks.
Okay.
And the post office lately, you know,
Not,
Dismal.
yeah,
folks have some complaints about how often they're getting their mail.
Yeah, and I would, or I know sometimes we have the notice says where the pre-town meeting is.
And yeah, we do publish it in the
do that.
town report when pre-town meeting is going to be and where.
Jojo has her hand up.
Jojo.
Thank you. I think it is a phenomenally great idea to see if the Chase Center would be available for the pre-town meeting. And the reason is because whether it's the correct thing to do in terms of open meeting laws or not, the Academy building does not have the give and take, the back and forth where you can do a real good Zoom meeting. And it's just not acceptable that way. And I don't know why it wouldn't be okay to explain that in a public statement and make it clear that it would be correct to have it in such a venue.
Okay.
Thanks, Jojo.
Anybody else?
I mean, I would lean toward the Chase Centers because of the convenience and logistical headaches at the Academy building. And then we'd have to do all the chair setup and dismantle, and the law school will do that. And they'll have the sound system and the speakers, and if they allow us to use it. Week before their break, so.
What do you think about finding out if it's available? Do you think you can find out tomorrow?
I can call them tomorrow. I didn't want to call first and ask later.
And if you only put it, if you only put it on the cover, there's only one place to change it, but if you think it's also on the inside, then.
It sounds like if it's available, we have enough people who are in favor of the Chase Center, so we should just go with that.
yeah.
It sounds like Patrick's in favor and John, and are you, Stuart?
I am.
Yeah, so, I mean, I think the decision is made in a straw vote, which is fine with me. I just wanted to get my opinion in. I'm fine either way. So if it's available, we should go with the Chase Center.
And publicize it and let people know why.
Yeah.
We expect a larger than normal turnout.
Yeah.
And
And we can Zoom.
Yeah.
So we want to verify that first.
they make a motion, we go with the Chase Center if it's available. If you need a motion for it.
I don't know that you necessarily need a motion
Yeah.
on. You're gonna.
Yeah,
vote.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I think it's straw poll, plenty good.
Okay.
And for the town report, you're gonna take Patrick's and Stewart's two reports and merge them.
Yes,
I thought they both did a good job.
And there was, Stuart found one typo.
if spell check will find it.
No,
It
it's
won't,
Word.
it's form instead of from,
Oh,
in reference to, the town mining operation.
Gotcha, okay.
you think people understand when you say mining operation?
Well, you know, that was my other thing. I didn't know if that was just a term I used. I didn't like it when
The
I
town
wrote it.
sand pit or,
Gravel pit sounds a little too casual, but that's what people call it.
yeah.
It's a mining operation. It's a learning moment. It's a teaching moment.
Or the town extraction, operation. Do we just want to call it the gravel pit so everybody knows what it is?
We call it the transfer station and dump.
The woodchuck dirt pit.
There you go.
Get a motion to adjourn.
This kid,
Motion to adjourn?
well, there's
No.
someone with a quick.
If I may, my name is Devin Brennan. I emailed
Oh,
select board earlier today and in December.
Yep.
I request that the select board consider me for appointment to the Royalton Conservation Commission.
Is there an open seat?
So far as I know, Bushrod resigned.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if there was an open seat or not. I had asked Brad at the last meeting and he said all of the chairs were filled.
It was after that meeting that Bushrod resigned. I can show you the email if you'd like.
Okay. No, that makes sense. There wasn't any minutes to verify it, that he had resigned.
Bushrod emailed that he was stepping down. I think I saw it somewheres.
Brad emailed me, said for your information. Can I show it to you?
sure, yeah, sure.
Well, regardless, it's great that you're interested, so.
Thank you.
And you've been going to the meetings and helping and.
I have. I just mapped the trail on Crawford property.
Mhm.
Uh,
You live on Happy Hollow?
I live on Happy Hollow. It's the please feel free from Bushrod. Brad emailed it FYI.
Not very aptly named at this moment.
He must have added some flowery language.
Need not consider the appointment now. Just wanted to introduce myself.
Nice to meet you.
Have you had experience with this sort of thing or
On the Conservation Commission specifically.
or other boards or?
Well, I'm a board member of a 501c4 and I've taken a few classes at Vermont Law and Graduate School that I think encourage my work on these sorts of entities. So I think I can contribute to the Conservation Commission's goals and aims under Vermont law. And I think I can assist in the practical endeavors of the commission, like mapping trails.
How did you, what did you use to map it?
I used Cornell Lab of Ornithology's eBird, as well as my Google Maps. And I have an Excel sheet with the GPS coordinates, 100 points along the Crawford Trail.
Okay, if you can get that to one of the listers, Walter probably, you might be able to get a map that would overlay on the scale of one of these. So we can actually see it on the map, on paper map.
Yeah, I know Greg Stolowski has talked about some other resources. Avenza, I believe, is some sort of mapping tool that I can share that
Well,
information.
there's a lot of mapping tools, but the trick is getting it out of it. And, you know, most of the time you don't have the equipment to plot a map, but the listers do.
Okay. I can share that Excel file.
See what he says.
And based on your letter and picking up what you're putting down, the rest of the commission would love to have you aboard, is what it seems like. Well, they would at least like to have you aboard.
Hope so.
It's good to have a young person who's really out there helping develop the trails rather than just sit at a meeting.
I can share that I am president, co-founder of Swan Society Audubon VLGS chapter. I'm hoping to coordinate with the commission more to engage students on campus and the royalty community to observe birds in the area.
I've seen a lot more woodpeckers at my feeder than usual. Different ones too. They're not just the black and white ones.
Well, some crows and pigeons.
Oh, yeah. And starlings, lots of starlings.
Well, I'd like to move that we appoint Devin to the Conservation Commission.
Well, I thought you were gonna move that we adjourn.
I second that.
Just coming shortly, Stuart, because I'm running out of gas.
All those in favor of accepting Devin's.
Aye.
Hi, thank you.
Thank you, Devin.
You should have spoken up earlier.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we
sit
would have
through the whole
squeezed you in way earlier.
Well,
He was enjoying it.
I have 2 pages of front and back notes, so.
Oh, man.
Oh, that's not good.
That's how you got hired as the.
Yes.
Yeah, right.
I'm in state and local government this semester, so. I
You're a third year student?
am. Graduate this May, I expect.
Good.
You gonna stick around?
Absolutely.
Yes, it says right in his letter, he hopes to
Hopes to
reside
stay.
here
Oh.
indefinitely.
Are you renting or?
Yes,
That's fine.
we're paying on a mortgage with my in-laws,
Yeah.
but it's not in our name, so yeah, we're renting.
Good.
But it sounds like you actually have a permanent place to reside.
Yeah,
Well,
it's likely the only place we'll have to reside on. I mean, I
Yeah.
don't know how we reside anywhere else otherwise, so.
Well, it's nice to have a young person move to town.
Well, be careful. I came here for law school and graduated in '98, and so in what will seem like a few short years, you'll be sitting up here taking the public flogging that you.
Yeah. The former tenant come to visit, who graduated 35 years ago, and I mentioned it to my current tenants, and they said, that's before we were born.
Oh, man.
I think Vermont's longest serving senator, Vince Illuzzi, has some of the same professors that I had.
You would know that.
Firestone.
Firestone, yeah,
Mhm.
the same professor that he
Yeah.
would teach out.
Right. All right, now I will move to adjourn.
Yes, second.
Enthusiastic second, and
Off we
all
go.
those in favor, stand up.
Aye. Bye-bye.